Okay, so we're about to solve a puzzle using a phrase that doesn't even exist. And you might be asking, why? Well, because doing this is going to reveal something huge about how language doesn't just describe our world. It actively, and I mean actively, creates it. So let's dive right in.
First, let me ask you this. Can you really be a warrior for peace? I mean, on the surface, those two words just clash, right? They don't belong together. But that feeling, that little bit of contradiction, that is the key to absolutely everything we're going to explore today.
So here it is. Our central mystery starts with this phrase, Sophia's milices. And if you're thinking, I've never heard that before, you're right. You haven't. I literally just made it up. But trust me, by taking apart this imaginary phrase, we're gonna uncover how all language really works.
All right, let's tear this thing apart. On one hand, you've got Sophia. That's from the Greek word for wisdom. You know, something we think of as calm, thoughtful, peaceful. Then you've got milices, which is related to the word militia, an armed group ready to fight. Immediately, there's a serious clash here. And it's that tension, that wait, what moment that forces us to ask a really strange question. How can wisdom fight?
To even begin to answer that, we're going to need the right tools. So let's put together a little conceptual toolkit, straight from postmodern thought. It's actually the perfect way to investigate how language can create and even challenge the meaning of things.
So what even is postmodernism? Look, in a nutshell, it's just a way of thinking that's really skeptical of anyone who claims to have the single universal truth. Postmodernism says, hold on a second. Meaning isn't some fixed thing we discover, it's something we build. And, more importantly, something we're constantly arguing about through language.
Okay, tool number one, semiotics. It sounds super academic, I know, but it's just a fancy word for the study of how symbols make meaning. Think of it like this. We're popping the hood on language to see how the engine inside actually runs.
Semiotics says any word has two parts. You've got the signifier, that's the word itself, the sounds you're hearing right now. And then you've got the signified, that's the concept, the picture that pops into your head. Postmodernism's big insight is that the link between these two isn't automatic or guaranteed. It's actually a battleground where different meanings are always fighting for control. Now for our second tool, and this one's a biggie, deconstruction. This is a really powerful way to break down those simple black and white pairs we just accept without thinking. You know, like good versus evil, or war versus peace. Deconstruction shows us that these opposites are usually a lot messier and way more connected than they first appear.
Just take war and peace. We're taught from day one that they're total opposites. One is conflict, the other is harmony. Simple. But deconstruction leans in and asks, are they really? What happens when a metaphor just grabs these two ideas and smashes them together? Let's see it in action.
All right, our toolkit is ready to go. So now, let's put it to work on our first real-world case study. A metaphor I'm sure you've heard before, warriors of peace.
I want you to really think about what this phrase is doing. It's telling us that peace isn't just sitting around and waiting for things to be okay. No, it suggests peace is an active, often difficult, and even combative process. All of a sudden, peace needs the focus, the dedication, even the fight of a warrior.
And there it is again, that same tension. We think of a warrior as bringing conflict. We think of peace as pure harmony. By ramming them together, the metaphor kind of breaks both words, and it forces our brains to invent a whole new concept out of the wreckage. A fierce, determined, but nonviolent struggle for a better world.
So, what's the ultimate effect of all this? Well, for starters, the metaphor totally deconstructs that old war versus peace divide. It shows that peace isn't passive, it's an active struggle. It suggests your identity isn't fixed, you can be a pacifist and a fighter. And most importantly, it reveals that the war we're talking about isn't physical at all. It's a battle of ideas and narratives.
Okay, for our second case study, let's look at defenders of wisdom. This one is maybe a little more subtle, but what it shows us about our world right now is incredibly powerful.
What this metaphor does is pretty sneaky and pretty brilliant. It takes the very idea of wisdom, this big, abstract thing we think is untouchable, and it reframes it as something vulnerable, something fragile almost, something that needs to be actively protected.
You know, think about it. We defend things. Physical things. Castles, borders, nations. So what in the world does it mean to defend an idea like wisdom? Well, it elevates the search for knowledge into a vital battle, a struggle against things like ignorance and misinformation.
And when we deconstruct this one, we hit a truly postmodern nerve.
The goal here isn't to protect one single capital T truth. Not at all. It's about fighting against misinformation and truth decay. It's about protecting the very possibility of having multiple truths and shared systems of meaning. And this is the real kicker. What's ultimately being defended isn't a truth, but the value of searching for truth in the first place.
Okay, we started with a completely made-up phrase. We've looked at two very different metaphors. Now, it's time for the big reveal. Let's connect all these pieces and see what they've been building this whole time.
It turns out both metaphors are built on the exact same postmodern foundation. They both completely reject simple black and white thinking. They both tell us that identity is fluid, that it's your purpose, not a fixed label, that defines you. And most critically, they both redefine the very idea of what a conflict is.
And here it is. This is the core of it. The war that the warrior is fighting, the defense that the defender is mounting, none of it is physical. The primary battlefield, the real arena of conflict, is discourse itself. It's the realm of ideas, arguments, stories, and narratives. The real fights are being fought over the meaning of things. Which brings us to the single most important takeaway from all of this. We tend to think of language as a mirror, right? Something that just passively reflects the world as it is. But it's not. That's not what it does. Language isn't a mirror. It's a hammer. It's a tool that we actively use to build our reality, to shape it, and sometimes to smash it apart.
And that leaves us with one final question to chew on, a question for you. If language really is a hammer and not a mirror, then every single word you choose is a swing of that hammer. So take a look at the words you use every day. What kind of reality are you building?